introduce you to a marvelous lady, a wonderful speaker, and she is very sacred to me. She has been in my life for a long time, even though we haven't met formally till today, because I have her book, and it is called Real Life Rituals, and it is real life, and it is beautiful. I have used many of her rituals in this book. I've used some of them verbatim. Some of them I've changed up for whatever situation that we're blessing for that day. And it's just a gem. I have it on my bookshelf, Science of Mind Text, Bible, Karyl Huntley's book. It is incredible. You will love her talk. You will love her book. They will be for sale after. So without further ado, let me introduce you. Reverend Karyl comes to us from Corte Madera, California. We may have said that earlier. She has been served as the minister in 3 different pulpits. She also leads tours every year to sacred sites. She has a passion for rituals and for the ancient ways. She has 2 wonderful children, and she is in the process of writing her 2nd book, or you've written your 2nd book. Maybe there's a 3rd one, I don't know. But she is awesome. You're going to love her. Please welcome Reverend Karyl Huntley.
Oh. Thank you. Good morning. I'm telling you, a lot happens here before the talk. Such prayers and such music, and you've got it. You've got it. So sit back, and I'm going to tell you some stories. And so I want to thank Reverend Georgia for inviting me here. And what I'm going to say, you've probably heard before, but I'm going to say it, I think, with just a little bit different words, and it might hit you a little bit differently, because that's the value of more than one teacher, is that you just hear it a little bit differently. My talk title is CoCreation with Order and Holiness. So I'm going to give you a beginning lesson for those of you that are beginners. Are we all beginners here, really and truly? Yeah. Okay, a beginning lesson, a follow-up lesson, and an advanced lesson. So hopefully we got something for everybody. The first bit of the beginning lesson is we co-create. We don't do the creating. The creating comes from the divine law that was prayed into so beautifully by Mary Bell. Oh my God. So we co-create, and we co-create by really the use of our mind, the contents of our thoughts, and the creative law sort of takes what we think probably the world is like and makes it just about like that. That's how we have the world around us that we have, which, by the way, is very, very different one person to another. So there's the mechanism of how this works is really in every single wisdom tradition, in the holy writings and in Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote, there is nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. Jesus said, it's done unto you as you believe. In the book of Job, it's written, I love this one, thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and light shall shine upon thy ways. Wayne Dyer's book title, Believe It and You'll See It. And then there's, of course, Jean-Luc Picard that just said, make it so. We actually have absolutely free reign in creating the experiences of our life. And we have a lot of power in creating the actual conditions of our life. But there's a big difference between conditions and experience. You can have the same condition and everybody has a different experience of it. Here's a perfect example. When I was getting dressed this morning, I realized I hadn't brought the lovely pants, cute pants, that go with this top. these are my, my knock around in the woods pants. When I realized that circumstance in my life, I was extremely unhappy because it was 7:30 in the morning, and I had no choice but to wear my my outdoor pants. So I texted a minister friend of mine and with some bad words and said, "This is what I've done," and she said, "Go with it, put it in your talk, they'll love it." And then I thought, okay. And I thought, well, I have this cute necklace and I have this stole that really does tell that I'm a minister. So it's going to be okay. And I changed my experience because I changed my mind. And now it's just kind of funny, I mean, it's pretty darn funny. The other pants were really cute. You'll have to see me in them sometime. So I'm very well aware that not all circumstances are as easily shifted as my pants. And all of us have unspeakable pain in our lives, or we have gone through it. And so one of the beginning questions is, well, why is this in my life? I certainly didn't create that. I didn't choose that. I didn't call that in, and it just landed in my life, and I really don't like it. So I believe that there are, even though we can change the experience of every single circumstance, there are things that land in our lives, including these amazing conversations that are going to take place starting soon and going through the year. I think there are a few reasons why some of those negative things happen to us, and it comes into our life like a bad surprise. One is that we are co-creating with everybody else on the planet. And there's a lot of bad feelings out there, have you noticed? So we co-create experiences with everybody else. And there's also an evolutionary movement in this that we haven't, even the most advanced of us, haven't kind of quite evolved out of the belief that competition exists. And there are some other things, that selfishness exists in some people, and just real stupidity, bad choices exist in some people. And so we all kind of hold this, and that plays out. We hold this as truth, and so our life reflects that. And the other piece is that when we declare something really big and important for ourselves, often on the hero's journey, we move through some very difficult spots because we are growing ourselves into the person that can then step into the life we have envisioned for ourselves. We have to change. So, for example, when I was in ministerial school, I finally made the decision that I was actually going to be a minister. It took me a long time. But I remember when I was there and I was in a beautiful church in San Francisco, and I prayed this prayer, use me, I want to be the greatest minister. I want to be the shepherd of the sheep. I want to be of benefit to people's lives. Use me, Lord. And I got home and I was fired from the church that I was currently in. And so that didn't feel very good at the time, but I had to move from where I was to the ministry that I was going to. So that's what happens when we create a circumstance and the experience isn't so good. We can shift, and that is actually the follow-up lesson. If you don't like something in your life, you can change it. Absolutely, you can change the experience. And sometimes it is strenuous, difficult, arduous work because it's changing on the inside. How many of you realize that manipulating conditions out here never works? Never works. You have to shift on the inside in 4 main ways. You have to change your beliefs, You have to change your feelings. You have to change your speech. And you have to change your actions. So right now at my place at home, we are in the midst of our pledge program. And so I am talking for the Sundays of October, except this Sunday. George has given him a good message about that today, though. That I want everybody to have this experience about money, that it's fun and creative and blessed, and that just like everything else in life, it is God in action, and we can send our money to our highest vision, and it feels really good. And there's no fear attached to it, and there's no longing, there's no resentment, there's no anger or fear or anything. And for my people in Marin County, they are like everybody else on the planet. 95% of them have issues around money. 95% of us have issues around money. So we work at changing our beliefs, believing that there's plenty to go around, that there's always enough, that I can do great good with my money. Whatever money I have, I can start right today being of benefit with the money that I have. And then changing our feeling state that I like money. I like it. I like using it. I like making choices about it. I like paying my bills. I love what money can do, and my former fear about money is just gone. Now that's a big piece of work. If that has come down to you generation to change that, but that's the only way that you're going to have a different experience. And then you have to speak differently about money. And not talk about how expensive stuff is and how you never can afford things and blah, blah, blah. And one of the big things about this is how we speak about corporations and governments and money. And how I tell my people about Facebook. You know, there are so many people that put stuff up on Facebook that is a complaint about the other team. You know, whatever your political situation is, whatever, you know, this bad thing, and how they're spending money and how they're ripping us off and la, 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 la. And you post it on Facebook thinking it's going to do some good. And the only good that it can possibly do is kind of like a tea kettle when it starts screaming. You let off a little steam by posting that stuff. And that's it. Otherwise, you are affirming exactly what you don't want more of. Exactly. So stop it. Thank you. And then you have to change your behavior with money and start doing something creative and fun, and buying people's lunch or putting a $20 bill into an envelope and mailing it to a stranger. What fun would that be? That would be great fun to anticipate them opening that. Can you imagine going to your mailbox and opening up a personally addressed letter and there's a $20 bill? You know, whoa, what's that? So anyway, this works for every single thing in your life. It's going to work for every single one of these conversations. When you change your beliefs, your feelings, your speech, and your behavior, your life will change and you will get happier. It works with everything. And sometimes we need help with that because we are so entrenched in our own worldview that even imagining another worldview is a challenge. That's when you go to your practitioner. That's when you take a class. And for me, that's when I do a ritual. So I'll tell you a story of a big switch in a powerful ritual that I accomplished with some women that I'm close to. One of the women, and she has given me permission to put this story in my next book. So although it's very tender and vulnerable, she has given me permission to use it. So a woman that I know had a little bit of uterine cancer and needed to have her uterus removed. And so she asked for a ritual. So we got her women friends together. And I asked this woman to write down all of the ways of being in her life that she did not want to, that brought her pain, that she did not want to have bother her anymore. And she was so good about this. She was so vulnerable. She was so honest. She wrote, I have anger issues. When my husband does something I don't like, I pull away. I'm competitive. I look at the worst first instead of look at the best. And she had a long, long, long list of these things. So at this ritual, I read the list, and her friends who knew all these things about it, your friends know all of your unskilled parts, and bless their hearts, they love you anyway. Her friends loved her and knew that these things were painful for her. And I said, choose one of these things, write it on a little heart, and take this up to your friend and tell her how you know she can leave this behind, how you know she can get beyond this, how you can see her step into the wisdom place and the loving place and the patient place. And then she had a little red pouch, and we put the hearts in the pouch with all of the ways of being that she didn't want to live anymore. And then I told her that at the time of the operation, you give this red pouch to the surgeon and say, when you take out my uterus, take these too. She's a changed woman. Her experience of life and other people's experience of her is transformed. So, the advanced lesson. The advanced lesson is that by focusing on the qualities of God, which in this instance are order and holiness, we call forth what we want to create that is for the good of all. If you look out at nature, everything is orderly. The seasons roll in an orderly fashion. Things usually don't run into each other sometimes, but then it creates moons and asteroids and all kinds of other wonderful things. But mostly, nature is in a very systematic and orderly way. And in fact, Troward said, order is heaven's first law. So we want our life to be this orderly sequence of growth, as Troward said. And we also want all of our creations to reflect the holiness that we know that God is. So the beneficial, these qualities that you have floating over your heads, these are the holy qualities of God. And so in order to do that, we learn how to ask a different question. And the question is not so much, what do I want? But the question becomes, what wants to happen here? What wants to happen here? And when we ask that question, what wants to happen here, with that impetus behind us of order and holiness, what comes to us is a vision that may be very, very different than we answer to the question, what do I want? And then what we do is we declare it. We declare it, and it is made for us. Now, I want to leave you with this wonderful, wonderful example, really, of manifesting. I have a few of these books. These are the quotes that I find are the very, very best for me and inspire me. I never do a talk without having this book with me. But, in the book, in the textbook, Ernest says, you declare a thing, and then with some inner act upon itself, God creates. Well, I really wanted to understand what that inner act upon itself was. Very quickly, to give a foundation for this quote that I'm going to tell you from the Apple Spirit. There is a place in northern Scotland called Findhorn, and in the 50s, there were destitute people that took a trailer to this sandy place in northern Scotland and prayed for divine guidance, and they planted a little patch of vegetables because they were very poor family, and the spirits of the plants started speaking to them, and they said, "Hello, would you thin us out, please? We would like a little more room for those of us that are going to grow." And then they said, "We would like a little fertilizer, so go over in that pasture and get a cow patty and soak it, and then water it with us with that water." And what happened was they grew these enormous vegetables in the sand of northern Scotland that had no nutrients in it whatsoever. And this they became famous, and an entire retreat facility was created called Findhorn, and what they called the devas, the devas of the different plants, kept talking for 10 years to the owners, to the creators. So this is about what the apple deva said to them. "You feel drawn to us by the clustered blossom and the promise of fruit to come. That from a fragile, scarcely colored and short-lived bloom, a sturdy rosy apple appears, is but one of God's miracles, enacted many times over for all to observe. If you could see more of how this is brought about by the chain of life, wonder would lift you high. As from the seed a tree grows, so from the seed idea a pattern issues forth from the center, passed on by silent ranks of angels, silent and still because that idea is still too unformed and unfixed to endure any but the most exacting care. Then the pattern is passed on to the elements, the maker of form. They give of themselves to clothe that pattern. And then at the appropriate opportunity, through the ministrations of the nature spirits, it appears in time and place. This is the Word made flesh. This is all creation, held in balance by great layers of life of which your conscious mind is unaware. You, man, have the fruits, although you do only a small part of the work. May your praise be greater than ours, which never ceases." So there are silent hands, angel hands, making what we put forth into the world. It can be no other way. And so I want for all of us wise and beautiful calling forth from this moment forward for the great good of all concerned. I hope I see many of you in my ritual class this afternoon. I've got my books over there. I'm taking a tour to Scotland this summer and another one to England. And I thank you. Thank you for having me here. Blessings on your path. Oh, wait. One more thing. Oh, one more thing. I know everybody's ready to go. But, okay, so Science of Mind, earthy stuff, Walt Disney, all the same thing in my house. Here's a piece of art that I have. This is the witch from Snow White. The poison witch. Snow White dies and then is reborn with the lover's kiss. So this is exactly what Mary Bell was praying about, leaving the old behind, because this says, "Take a bite, Karyl. I am always so ready to leave behind what no longer serves me and step into my new life." So I look at this every day before I go out in the world. So take a bite, everybody.